Top 3 bands that hated the Sex Pistols. The Sex Pistols were a punk rock band formed in London in 1975. Known for igniting the British punk movement of the late 1970s, they became a symbol of the UK's political and social unrest with their controversial song, God Save the Queen. Despite their short-lived career, breaking up in 1978 after a troubled US tour, they remain one of the most influential acts in modern music, producing only 4 singles and 1 studio album. Never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols. They briefly reunited in 1996 for the Filthy Lucre tour, with additional reunion tours in 2002 and 2003. The band included vocalist Johnny Rotten, guitarist Steve Jones, drummer Paul Cook, and bassist Glen Matlock. But for every fan who hailed them as heroes, there were bands who absolutely despised them. Here are 3 bands that hated Sex Pistols. The Clash. The Clash were a more inventive British punk band from the same era, known for their socially aware and memorable lyrics. Fronted by Joe Strummer, The Clash also emerged from the late 1970s punk scene, but they saw punk as a platform for political activism, addressing issues like poverty, class struggle, and racial inequality. Unlike the Sex Pistols, who were seen as more focused on shock value, The Clash believed in using their music to push for real change. Although they respected each other musically, tensions arose. Strummer criticized the Pistols, saying they lacked meaningful content and stood for little more than abstract socialism. The Stranglers. What fueled the Stranglers' hatred for the Sex Pistols was the overwhelming media attention the Pistols received. While the Stranglers were already established as musicians with a solid following, they felt overshadowed by the constant hype surrounding Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious. Bassist Jean-Jacques Bernal of the Stranglers was openly critical of the Sex Pistols, labeling them wimps. Bernal claimed that while the Stranglers were grinding through over 200 gigs in 1976, the Sex Pistols and The Clash were playing exclusive, media-focused parties in London. Bernal saw this as a sign of inauthenticity, believing the Stranglers were the ones truly fighting on the front lines of punk. The rivalry between the Stranglers and the Sex Pistols wasn't just verbal, it got physical. On more than one occasion, tensions between the 2 bands spilled over into violence. The Stranglers continued to release albums and evolve their sound well into the 1980s and beyond. The Ramones. The Ramones were one of the founding bands of the punk movement, also had mixed feelings about the Sex Pistols. While they shared a lot of common ground musically, the Ramones didn't appreciate the way the Sex Pistols turned punk into a spectacle. Johnny Ramone, in particular, disliked the way the Pistols' attitude overshadowed the music. Though the Sex Pistols helped bring punk to the mainstream in the UK, the genre's foundation had already been laid by the Ramones years earlier. Joey Ramone felt the Sex Pistols had copied their style, and he held a grudge, claiming, "These guys ripped us off." He also blamed the Pistols' notorious antics for damaging the Ramones' chances of mainstream success. Their association with the Sex Pistols, who had a chaotic reputation, led to the Ramones being overlooked.